Hello, I'm John Broom with the Dalhousie Medical Research Foundation. This is part of a series of updates on some of the research taking place at Dalhousie University as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic. This is part 2 of a 2-part interview with Dr. Roy Duncan, a Dalhousie researcher and professor in the Department of Microbiology and Immunology. Alongside several collaborators at Dalhousie and across Canada, Dr. Duncan is working to develop and evaluate potential vaccines to help prevent COVID-19. It was recently announced that Canada's first clinical trial with a potential COVID-19 vaccine is taking place right here at Dalhousie in partnership with the Canadian Centre for Vaccinology. Even so, why is it important to still pursue the development of other vaccine candidates?
That's a good question, John. There are multiple reasons for that. One, obviously, is the scale of this pandemic. We are going to need to have enough vaccine to vaccinate a large percentage of the population. So more vaccine platforms that are out there that are being produced in multiple countries is obviously going to be a good idea. The second reason is we're actually never sure with the vaccine until we get through large-scale clinical trials on how well it's going to work. Some vaccines can cause problems, and we don't know until we test them. Others work great. Some of them have short-term memory. Some of them last much longer. So those are all issues that need to be addressed here. And at the moment, we just don't have enough information to know what's going to be the best vaccine. And so I think it's actually incredibly promising that there are so many candidates going forward at the moment. Several of these, my guess will be, several of these will end up being, in quotes, winners, ones that actually work well and that can be rapidly scaled up and produced in large quantities. So I think that's the reasons that you need to have multiple platforms going forward is to deal with those kinds of issues.
When a promising vaccine candidate is identified in the lab, how quickly can it be moved into human clinical trials and scaled up for public use?
The normal process for vaccine development would run 5 to 10 years in order to move from the lab into the clinic. And that's just because you need to go through you need to do preclinical studies, usually animal work, to show that the vaccine works in animals and it's safe. You then need to move through 3 phases of clinical trials. A phase 1 trial, a limited number of patients just purely usually to check safety. And then you need a larger sample size, a phase 2 trial, where you now get to look down a little more carefully at how well the vaccine works. And then you need a large phase 3 trial, where you now have thousands of patients in it, and now you're looking for those rare adverse events that might happen. So that process of moving through 3 phases can take a long time, and there's regulatory hurdles to meet at each step along the way. What's happening with COVID-19 vaccine is they're expediting that process. So it's important, I think, for people to realize that they're not decreasing or reducing the safety standards. That's not the case. So the vaccines that are moving forward for COVID-19 at the moment still have to meet the same criteria that vaccines need to meet normally. So you have to show that they're safe. You need preclinical data. You have to show they're non-toxic, that they're safe. You have to show that they work in animal models, and then you can move into humans. What they are doing at the moment, though, is expediting that process on how they review those stages. And they're doing things as well. For example, they're overlapping a phase 1 and a phase 2 trial. So if the results from the phase 1 trial early enough show that the vaccine candidate is perfectly safe, they're willing to move forward on a larger phase 2 trial while they overlap with the phase 1 trial. So they're putting measures in place like that to shorten the process to get through to the vaccine, but the safety standards that have to be met are still the same. And so that expedited process now, instead of 5 to 10 years, there's optimism, I think, and reasonable optimism that the COVID-19 vaccines, the first ones will reach that approval stage. My guess would be within the next year for sure. And then it's a question of how quickly you can scale up and mass produce those vaccines for the public. And I think it's interesting to notice that the large pharmaceutical companies here are already scaling up. So they have vaccine candidates moving through the pipeline, moving through those phase 1, phase 2 safety trials. They're going ahead with that. But in anticipation of those clinical trials being positive, they're actually taking a gamble and rolling the dice and scaling up production now. And so that if they are successful when they test them, then they will actually be well on their way to actually ramping up production. And so that may actually seriously shorten the amount of time it takes to come out. But when you think about it honestly, to crank out hundreds of millions of doses here, that is going to be the part that takes some time. But I think within the next year, you will see those first vaccines starting to roll out.
Thank you, Dr. Duncan, for taking the time to speak with us and for providing us with insight into the exciting world of vaccine development. Your work is critical to protecting us from the COVID-19 illness and other novel coronaviruses for years to come.
Thanks, John. My pleasure being here, and I want to take the opportunity as well to thank the Dalhousie Medical Research Foundation. They've been supporters of our research for all these years and continue to be, so thanks very much.
If you'd like to find out more about the COVID-19 research DMRF donors are helping to support, please visit dmrf.ca/coronavirus. And if you have any questions or concerns you'd like to share, or if you'd like to help, we'd love to hear from you at dmrf@dal.ca. Thanks for watching.